What's good, everybody? I'm the G with a PhD, and you're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chases. So, what I'm going to do is allow some time for some people to matriculate into the channel. Good afternoon. You're tuned in to the Green Gorilla channel, the place where black men can express themselves freely, straight up, no chasing. I'm allowing some time for some people to matriculate into the channel. Please make sure to hit the like and the subscribe buttons and to share the video if possible. I was supposed to do this yesterday, but I didn't feel like it yesterday. I had some things going on, so I had to take care of some business. But I'm here today. It's been a long time. I shouldn't have left you without a streamcast to step to. Well, the title of this cast today is going to be, "It would be nice to be able to fly under the radar, but some fools just love to perform." So I'm just thinking about life and what it would be like to not be honed in on, not to have a heat-seeking missile targeted in on you, where you wouldn't be the focus of attention at all. And you could pretty much operate and sneak through the cracks. Wouldn't that be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to be, I don't know if you've ever seen this movie, it's called The Spook Who Sat by the Door. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to be the spook who sat by the door? The person who's able to take intelligence, the person who's relatively unnoticed. But some people love to perform. They got to be the center. They got to be out front. Even if they're not exposed to heat, they still want to be the center of attention. They want to be out on Front Street. What up, man? What up, Adam? It's good. I'm trying to give it a little bit of time to warm up here, man. I got like about 20 people or so watching right now. But you all know how it's going down, man. Another brother got shot and killed, this time over a domestic dispute. I think the woman's, the man's girlfriend or his baby mama called the police, and then that's how, you know, the pretext under which he got shot. So more gendered violence. More gendered violence. So anyway, man, like I do, I like to start off, and I just want to start off and say something, just so it can be known. And I'm going to start with the Combahee River Collective and a specific passage from it, Because if you understand the nature of a thing, you'll understand where all of this is going and why people are acting the way that they're acting, why they're making the kind of statements they're making. You'll understand everything. This is the playbook. If you want to understand contemporary gender politics, this is all you got to do. Study it, examine it, look at the passages, see what they're trying to articulate, and see if it's not anything different than from what you see here. I bet you'll see everything being played out right now, right here. Right here. Exactly right here. What's up, Bishop Red Pill? What's up, NEU? So look, let me just go in. I'm gonna read this passage. Okay. Now, this is a group of women who are Black lesbian feminists who are making a declaration about all women who are Black. Now, first of all Black women don't agree with them and hadn't agreed with them up, they're getting more agreement with their ideals. But back then, Black women weren't totally on par with all of this. They weren't in accord with all of this. But increasingly, as you see more and more exposure of this way of thinking coming from the top and trickling down through the media, and the top is the academy. This is and social movements, because the people who started this kind of social movement, they matriculated into the academy and into government and into the arts, into writing books. So this become mainstream. So this is what they say. And this is from the second section, the third section actually, called Problems in Organizing Black Feminists. They say, the psychological toll of being a Black woman and the difficulties this presents in reaching political consciousness and doing political work can never be underestimated. There is a very low value placed upon Black women's psyches in this society, which is both racist and sexist. As an early group member once said, we're all damaged people merely in virtue of being Black women. We are dispossessed psychologically and on every other level. And yet we feel the necessity to struggle to change the condition of all Black women. In a Black feminist search for sisterhood, Michelle Wallace arrives at this conclusion. And I'm quoting from what they quote from Michelle Wallace. We exist as women who are Black, who are feminists. Each stranded for the moment, working independently because there is not yet an environment in this society remotely congenial to our struggle. Because being on the bottom, we would have to do what no one else has done. We would have to fight the world. I said this before. Fight the world. They got to fight the world. And then the writers of the Combahee River Collective go on to say, Wallace is pessimistic but realistic in her assessment of Black feminists' position, particularly in her allusion to the nearly classic isolation most of us face. So in other words, Black women are isolated apart from each other, and there's damage being done to their psyches. But they're going to use their position at the bottom to make a revolutionary leap, a clear leap into revolutionary action. And this is the craziest statement, man, out of all of it. The craziest sentence. If Black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would have to be free, since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all systems of oppression. What's up, my brother? T Fitness for you. Thank you for the donation. And welcome, Soul Shader Artificial. Appreciate you being here, my brother. Just think about that. Let me repeat that because it's important. We can use our position at the bottom to make a clear leap into revolutionary action. If Black women were free, it would mean that everyone else would have to be free, since our freedom would necessitate the destruction of all the systems of oppression. So they are oppressed by every single system of oppression. And if they are free, everyone else would be free by default. I got a brother, Edward Anderson, who's going to join me in a second. I just want to get this off and let the pretext for which I'm trying to give you some insight into about what I'm talking about when I say flying under the radar. So, Brother Anderson, just hold tight. I'm going to let you in. Just think about that. Now, what is my response to this? What is my response? I mean, that's a hell of a statement to make. Okay? It's a hell of a statement to make. That's a hell of a statement to make. It basically says they don't have to take into consideration anybody else's ideals, their pain, their oppression, because they got that covered already. The ideal that if the most oppressed group of persons are free, then then everyone else would be free because all systems of oppression would be eliminated is simple-minded. For at least 4 reasons. I can think of at least off the cuff 4 reasons why that's just absolutely ridiculous. For one, it assumes that the ways in which oppression is basically carried out is fixed. But this is just false. That's absolutely false. Oppression morphs into different forms and it moves around like a bubble in a carpet. As soon as you stomp it out in one spot, it moves to another spot. And it appears as something different, but it's similarly harmful. The way I can put it, it's like a virus that alters its DNA to prevent a host's immune system from being able to fight it. That's what oppression is like. Because the way oppression manifests, it doesn't sit still. It doesn't rest. And the claim that it can be completely abolished by any one group is fantastic. It's quixotic. It's ridiculous. It's not going to stand still. The strategy is going to change. People make what they call it halftime adjustments. So as soon as you got one game figured out, they're going to switch and flip the script and come with a different form of it. That's the first thing. The second thing, man, if you promote the ideal and you assume that Black women are oppressed by all systems and are in a position to know what they are, you are placing yourself, if you're a Black woman and you think like this, you feel like you're a god and you got the whole oppression game figured out. You mean to tell me you are in a position of omniscience to where you can figure all of the forms of oppression out? All of the schemes and the machinations imaginable? You really feel like you got that figured out? You can work that out? That's just an unreliable claim. It's an unreliable claim, especially if you're not consulting with other groups of people who are oppressed, especially Black men. We can tell you something about oppression also. Another reason this claim to me is just absolutely ridiculous is that it puts forth a negative universal subject. What do I mean by this? A negative universal subject means that they are the subject on which all justice rests. The black lesbian woman. So they are justified in fighting everyone in the entire world because they're the most oppressed. That's a negative universal subject. And how do they fight against it? They don't fight against it with force, guns, knives, trains, planes, and automobiles. They fight against it through slave morality. Now, I don't have the time to elaborate on what slave morality is, but it's the kind of morality that posits itself as a victim and begs for people to recognize them. It begs to be treated fairly by the person who has no interest in treating you fairly. And the odd thing about it is, the only mechanism that they can have in order to procure justice for themselves is white male patriarchy. Because all of the laws, the policies, the directives, the initiatives, whatever, the acts, whatever they are, that are utilized to uphold black lesbian women's freedom, is going to require white police officers, white bureaucrats, and white officials, judges, and so forth to enforce and endorse them. Because they're not going to go out and do it themselves. But the biggest problem with that is the people who are the true patriarchs, they are left unscathed. They're not bothered by this. That's why, again, you can have two presidential nominees. One who said, I'm going to grab him by the pussy. The other one who says, who's been accused of sexual assaults. They are unscathed by this. And you can even have a VP, a vice presidential nominee, who during a debate basically said that Biden was a sexual assaulter because she believed her. Now she's running with him and has his full support. That's the politics we work. While he's being accused of sexual assault. And the last thing about this, man, the freedom promoted by these women is basically supported by what I call negative liberty. Negative liberty is the liberty to be left alone. It's like rights, right to life, liberty, and property. That's the only rights, the only form of freedom that they are basically promoting. They want to be left alone. They want to be free to be able to have their life, their liberty, and their property how they want. But this just leaves out other kinds of freedoms. Now, I'm a philosopher, so I know that there's something called the freedom of self-perfection and the freedom of self-realization. The freedom of self-perfection means to commit yourself to accomplishing a goal, a career, or an objective, and closing yourself off to everything else and getting down dirty with that. You can't be a jack of all trades. You can't be a master of all trades. You can be a jack of all trades, but a master of none. That's where the phrase comes from. So when you decide to perfect something, you got to leave everything else alone and focus and hone in on what you're trying to do. They don't discuss that kind of freedom or the freedom of self-realization, which means that you are basically being democratic. You are building constituencies with other persons and ruling according to public will, the general will, not just what's good for yourself and for your life and your liberty and your property, but you're thinking about the collective and what kind of laws, rules, and policies would be good for the whole, not just for you and your group, but good for the whole. So I'm just going to say this, man. I don't know what freedom for women looks like, because I'm not a woman, but I can tell you what it don't look like. Feminist lesbian communes where there are no men allowed because men are inherently pathological and unsafe. Now, if you want to know the truth, lesbian women are quite unsafe in radical feminist lesbian communes. You want to know why? Because they're the demographic with the highest rate of domestic violence. Now, white women tried that in the 70s, man. They already did it. And they left them alone. Because they came to the conclusion that no matter a person's sex, gender, or class, everybody can be an asshole. Anybody can be one. Now, why you got black women trying to reproduce this experiment, I have no idea. But I guess some people got to learn from from their own experience. Some fools love to perform. And they say ain't nothing like bought sense and bought through experience. So I guess they got to go through that to figure it out. Let me come back, man. I got my head down a little bit, man. So I'm gonna let my brother Edward Anderson make some remarks here, and I'm gonna get back to what I got to say. Brother Edward, welcome to the stream, man. How you doing?
Yeah, I'm doing all right. I'm glad to be here. We need to support our certified scholars. That's one thing that I do preach, maybe not as much as I should, but I do come back around to it. When it comes to yourself, Dr. Tommy Curry, as well as Dr. T.S. Johnson, and there's a couple of other ones too that I'm forgetting. But as black men, we need to promote our interests. We need to understand that stuff has had the rigorous, not necessarily scholastic, but you get what I'm saying, that we've done it, the proper way, not just we're just talking out our ass. That there's actually studies that actually validate the stuff that we're saying, and the stuff is not new, that what we're talking about, because that gives us a certain type of credibility, and as a group, that's something we need to promote more. We have to start paying for our interests. So I always promote that. So that's one of the reasons I wanted to hop on as well, because I do value, you're giving your expertise to these types of conversations. So yeah, and as far as what you're talking about, I didn't hear the beginning. I heard like the last 15 minutes of what you said, so I'm up to speed. But I didn't hear, what was the original premise of it. Were you talking about like they want to create a commune or something like that?
Well, I mean, for the most part, what I'm trying to do is lay the groundwork for why black women are behaving the way that they are politically. And I'm saying that if you want to understand the nature of, let's say, for example, like you're a football fan, right?
Yeah, I watch football.
You know how the Rams offense was when it was the greatest show on turf, right? It was
I'm familiar with it.
It's a fast game. A lot of audibles being called. You had Marshall Faulk. A lot of running back screens. Then you had, and once that threat is established, from the run through screens and through, just straight up the gut plays, then it opens up room for passing. You know what I'm saying? And it's, the team is fast, so you might see a lot of straight goals, go routes. But if you know what the team is like, then you know how to defend against it. Right?
Well, that's true, but the thing about football is you can't be in denial with what's going on. If you're dealing with a quarterback, let's say you're dealing with a quarterback that's very hard to hit, like Michael Vick, Robert Griffin III, he had a phenomenal first year. Even I forget the quarterback right now that's on the Baltimore Ravens. People are going to lose their job, defensive coordinators, if they don't know how to deal with folks by playing film and watching it. And there's consequences to men not adjusting versus however, I say that to say this. When you you have to be able to see what is in front of you and not be in denial of it. And with black men, unfortunately, as a group, black men have a blind spot where we don't want to accept what's going on, no matter, even though it's been going on for decades. You're just seeing it being obviously manifested now, and you're seeing so many black women be promoted to police chief. You're seeing black women being mayors. What you're seeing is black women being upgraded to have a more overt role in as a lot of these older civil rights generation dudes are fading away, they're having a more overt role in being managerials of basically the society that's a plantation. And just like how you had the Irish before them, where they were kind of the lowest totem pole of what was considered like traditional whiteness, and then they occupied the police force, which they still do, and stuff like that, and they were able to not be serfs but to be upgraded in a new shit called like racial caste system, and not the traditional caste system that they had, like serfdom is based on bloodlines. And then they held on to that, even though they never not they always stayed being at the bottom of whiteness, outside of like Hispanics and people that are not really considered white, like to white people, but on government paperwork. But black women have been kind of up. Now they'll never be considered white, but black women have been kind of upgraded into that situation. This is why you hear things like women of color. It hits the women and the color part, kind of like a double, kind of like the double thing where you're a woman and you're of color. You see that in corporate America, but you also see that now in the politics, where now they're focused on women and people of color, but not really black people. It's a way to kind of isolate the people they want to isolate, but then create this perception or promote who they promote. Here's the issue. The issue is our women buy into that, and they don't understand it. They fall in the trap of buying into a system that long term is fuck black men for a second. Long term, this I can make the case. If you even say, let's say you don't care at all about black men, at the end of the day, when you actually look at your life quality of life, long term, this fucks you up. This doesn't help you, because at the end of the day, as you get older and you're not able to work, you're not able, your sexual marketplace, because people ain't getting retirement like that anymore. So once these women are not able to work, then what's going to happen? Where are they going to be? Welfare ain't going to be there like that. The government is not really going to pay you like that. They're going to be like, where's your man? Well, feminism told me I didn't need a man. Okay. Just saying. So they keep women in the workforce. They keep women spending a lot of money because women are hyper consumers. And then what happens is when they're done with you, they're done with you. It's almost like the way you do porn stars. You get them when they're young, and then when you're done, you turn them out. And they don't understand it, even for their own best interests. That is screwing them up. Other women understand that more, even though this is the overall American problem. But other women understand it. In the day, you can't completely subvert your men, because your men are an insurance policy. Even if they play musical chairs with their men a little bit to try to get more power, they still don't ever get to the point where they feel like in order for them to be valued, their men need to be completely destroyed. And they damn sure don't reach to other systems to actually facilitate that for them. And that's what makes us unique, because of the slavery and stuff like that. So even for these women, but they don't understand that, because they buy into the system as is. And this is why you hear things like colorism. But at the same time, it's not them saying that you don't need a caste system. They're saying they don't like their place in it. So it's that Chinese finger trap mentally that our sisters are trapped in, and black men a lot of times don't accept that. They always feel like you can alpha your way through it. You can negotiate your way through it. And the reality is, for 80% of your women, you can't. 20% you probably can, but 80% of them you can't. You just can't, because they're too bought into the system. And BGS says the number is even higher than that, to be honest with you. But anyway, that's at least my initial thoughts on that.
Yeah. And look, let me just say that just to pick up on what you're saying. For the most part, black women have made a choice. They've made a choice, and whether or not they're consciously making the choice or they're implicitly making the choice, feminism has become part of the mainstream. And one of the tenets of black feminism is for black women to look out for themselves first. That's just a philosophical tenet, right? So they're fighting what they consider to be oppression on multiple fronts. This is their justification for their behavior, right? Namely, that they suffer from sexism, racism, heteronormativity, and classism. So those are the only talking points you're going to hear. You're going to hear something about heteronormativity, or the normality associated with being heterosexual and how oppressive it is. You're going to hear how they're subjected to racial oppression. You're going to hear how they're basically subjected to sexism, and they ain't got no money. They're in a lower class. So they're going to fight against all of those things together, and then they think they interlink with one another. right?
Well,
That
well,
they,
what makes that so bad is they make it sound like black men are at the forefront of that. I said if you killed off if black men disappeared like a Thanos snap, all those problems for the most part you still have. And at that point, because you have nobody to blame, and this is what black women don't understand too. A lot of what black women have, they get as a method of you basically keep the system going the way it is. Women are promoted to women, like the reason your advertising is focused on women across the board, not just black women, is because they're better consumers than men. Men do too much saving, they do too much building, they do too much legacy shit. They need people that are gonna buy now, buy fast, and buy stuff that is worthless in the long term because our economy is built on the economic engine it turns. That's the only real difference between American economy and Brazil is our economy is built on not only natural resources because Brazil's built on that. Our economy is built on an engine it turns. You stop turning it and then everything falls apart as you're starting to really see. This is why they put so much money into trying to keep it turning. And women make much better consumers than men because men, like I said, they do so much building shit. And black women do the most of consumption because they're the most that are really decoupled from their men. That's why it's to the but the point is most of what our women have is not just built on what black men fought for, but it was built on saying, okay, if we got to give it to black people, we need to give it to black women because black men are gonna may do too much building with it. So we need to give it to black women because that's pretty much the lottery scenario where it's gonna come back into the system. It's going to come back to the system either vis-a-vis spending. And I'm not saying black men don't spend or waste money on stupid shit. We know we do. But my point is, this is the Monahan report. Monahan basically said, Monahan was not really a fan of white black people, but he said if you really want to integrate them and deal with the race problem, you need to basically put black men in line with the rest of the way the system is across the board. And then basically white women said, no, F that, because it's our turn. And they basically threw it out there to black women. And black women jumped on it a lot faster than even white women anticipated. Because white women know what they're doing. I always tell black women this. Nobody has taken more from you. Nobody has taken more from the black woman than the white woman. Nobody kisses the ass of the white woman more than the black woman. And black women never they agree with it, but it never resonates. Because if anything, most of black women's problems, really the white woman is at the forefront of that crap, at least in the front door. But for some reason, black women have this psychology where they blame black men for everything. And even if you and my thing is, how does blaming here's the thing. Let's say everything is black men's fault. Let's say it is black men's fault. Okay, now what? What do you do? Because the thing, and they don't know because they never get past blaming black men. And this is why black women could actually believe. There was an article that was written by a black man, moist dude, and he is. He said that black men are the white men of the black community. Even Richard Spencer and white men that are all right was like, what? They didn't even say that's too much for us. Black women basically agree with that shit. And that just goes into the mental like and it's like even for your own best interest, you can't really believe that and actually expect like the dudes with least power you're blaming for how are you I'll say this Grigler and I'll let it go. How are you saying you're better than your men in every metric but your men are oppressing you at the same time? And
well,
let's
well, I'm
screw
gonna,
all the crap I just said and somebody answer me that.
well, I can provide you an answer with that because I mean, here's how it works. Just so you know, okay. For the most part, and Tia San Johnson has explained this, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because black men don't have any institutional power, they can't actually be patriarchs. And Dr. Curry has explained this as well. So how they shoehorn in oppression by black men is through black men's lack of power,
Sex.
leading to rape and violence against black women primarily. So, I mean, there's an entire show that I have where I interviewed Dr. Curry, and he basically puts forth the idea that, okay, so it's mimesis that's operating as the functional, intellectual piece or the ideal that's ordering this concept that black men are oppressors, right? But my response, and a person like Tia Sign Johnson is going to come on and say, look, because there's a new body of social scientific research that's coming out, okay? So it has to be extremely unnerving for feminists of all stripes to come to terms with the fact that you got all of this social scientific research that's claiming or challenging their claim that domestic violence is gendered and that its primary cause is male dominance. And it has to be even more gut-wrenching for black feminists to accept the viability of this work that's coming out. I'm talking about work by Murray Strauss, right, who's one of the foremost leading conductors of research in the area of domestic violence. And I put a link in one of my previous videos that was done by a group of persons published by Harvard, where they talk about how domestic violence is, for the most part, reciprocal or bivalent in most cases. But when it's unidirectional, women are the ones who initiated the most, not men. So when
yeah, and you see it in how women deal with each other. But go ahead.
So when you put those facts out there, right? Because basically all of this essentially boils down to the black boogeyman concept, and Dr. Curry talks about this, right? The image of the black boogeyman is all that black feminists have to indict black men as oppressors. Because again, black men don't have any control of any major institutions in the United States. They don't have control over the educational, judicial, legislative, executive, financial, even the familial institution. We don't have control over, because there's a gynocracy there, or what I call matria potestas, where women have complete control over the ability to rear children. So what I'm trying to get out is, in other terms, right? It has to be extremely disheartening for black feminists to assert that black men are sexist, patriarchal, and oppressive to black women, when black women are just as likely, if not more likely, to commit the same kind of actions that they declare that make men oppressive, patriarchal, and sexist. Now, if they acknowledge the research, then they have to admit that black women themselves are oppressive, patriarchal, and sexist. That's the reality of the situation. Most of their careers would be rendered meaningless, and their political orientations would have to undergo a paradigm shift. Now, that's not what they want to do. So they're going to continue to try to find ways to make their original theorization work. But it all hinges upon the idea of the black boogeyman, that the black man is a rapist, he's an abuser, and he's violent, and he is so because he's not really a real man.
And Cynthia G makes this argument, but I'm not even exact. That's the argument that's pretty. You just encapsulated that, her argument, from an intellectual standpoint. And I've even heard other black men. So I was even on a panel where a black man that comes from a 2-parent household that has been married, divorced, but it was amicable. Basically, relatively good experiences on this stuff, not in the kill zone on a lot of these things, or battle scars. And not to say I have, but he even brought that argument up about the black man has no power. And he was trying to lead me through it, but because I knew where he was going with it, like, he was surprised that I cut him off at the knees. He was like, "Well, black men have no power," and basically saying the only power we have is physical. And I was like, "So what are you saying? So you're saying that black men have no power, so we just whoop our women's asses?" I say, "So are you saying that black men bounce our women heads off the wall more so than any other race of men in the United States of America?" Two routes he tried to go. One route he tried to say all domestic violence is wrong. Okay, fine. But my point is, are you saying, because black men are the only ones we're talking about that has no power, so are you saying that we do that more than other men? Because if we don't, then the power dynamic is completely false. And I actually will argue we do it less, really. But he never wanted to plant his feet onto that, because they never do a lot of times, because it's like now it becomes opinions, stuff doesn't matter. But another thing I wanted to speak to your look, I said how important socials, like these surveys and these studies are, but the truth is, a lot of these studies and stuff, the question I will ask is, why is it now? A lot of this stuff has political power when it comes to how it's funded, what people choose to fund. And the reality is humans have been around a long time. A lot of this stuff is being rediscovered, but it's been known. Obviously we're in the fourth and we're going in the fourth industrial age. I understand we're going into uncharted territory, but my point is a lot of this stuff is not new. And like for instance, non-black women have known for a long time that black men are not gonna knock their head off. Because if they really believed that they were in danger, they believe they were in actual danger, they wouldn't deal with black men to the level that they deal with. Now people can point to marriages. I point to number one, the complaining black women do as far as how many black men are actually sleeping with these women. But they know like non-black women, and I'm not saying non-black women are better. That's not what I'm saying, because I actually don't trust white women, at least women I trust. So and effery happens everywhere. But what I'm saying is they come from more stronger patriarchal households. And for some, and non-black women surveyed and studied have said that black men are more reasonable. This is what they have said. And if men are what black women paint them out to be, race is not going to be like Arabs are Arabs regardless of the race they deal with. They don't all of a sudden become completely different because the Islam isn't turned off. Not saying it's all as you get what I'm saying. Their culture isn't turned off because they're dealing with different women. It may be muddled a little bit, but it's not completely shut down. So again, black women have been my this. Black
Yeah, you went out, man. I don't know what went on.
in you believing the delusions, because they understand that your delusions, number one, help to keep the black community messed up. It allows you to basically volunteer yourself as a kamikaze sacrifice of white supremacy, because you are sacrificing your quality of life. Because and basically now, because that stuff can't be funded anymore, feminism cannot be funded anymore like it used to be. So what they're really afraid of is they're afraid that you're going to have the lower tiers of women, not your limousine liberal feminists, that they have economics that can protect them. They're going to deal with the lower tiers of women that's going to have to get, basically dropped off by the wayside. And now you're going to see a growth of women that's going to start challenging that, because they're going to start to realize that what they were sold is a bad bill of goods. So really, in my opinion, what women fear, and this includes black women to other black women, is they're going to fear that backlash that we grew up in this. My life is this way, and blaming men is not changing that. Blaming men is not an answer. So what's going on? And they're going to get louder and louder. It's kind of like how black people are with the Democratic Party now, where slowly but surely you're seeing that backlash. And that's what they're really afraid of, because they don't have an answer for that. Because women typically don't have an answer. You can't shame women like you can shame men in a feminist society, because now you have to acknowledge certain truths that you had lied about the whole time.
Well, look,
and so that's something I'll be interested in seeing.
But one thing I want to do, I want to shout out Fast Attack. Thank you for the donation, my brother. I appreciate it. I also want to give a shout out to man, I'm going up, scrolling up. I want to give Ebo Sosa a shout out. Thank you very much for the donation, sir. And the Gold Professor, I also want to give a shout out. And I want to give a shout out to my brother BJ Onyx, who hit me up on the Cash App. And before I even move forward and proceed, I also want to give a shout out to some other brothers who hit me up on the Cash App, but I didn't have the opportunity or the time to give them a shout out before. So I'm just, I got to give a shout out to
no, absolutely, man. Yeah, definitely.
I want to give a shout out to Warren Thomas, Malik Barnett, Jar 3D, Mr. Williams, Victor, Byron, Michael Green. I want to give y'all shouts out, man. But having said that, I got another person who's in the queue who wants to make a few statements. So I'm gonna let her make a few statements, and then I'm gonna get back into the main gist of what it is I'm trying to talk about. Thanks for your contribution. And always feel free to come by, man, and drop some comments. And I'll be
absolutely.
You can even chime back in if you want to as you continue to listen to the cast. But
but I'm gonna hop off for the time being, because let the stuff breathe, and definitely. So I appreciate you letting me have the floor. So appreciate it. I'll make sure I start sharing your stuff on my community posts. Get you some subscribers, get you attention, because like I said, people need to know where the experts are to really do the actual research. I mean, obviously we have BGS, but that the other scholars need to be more known as well. So appreciate it, man.
I appreciate you, brother. Thank you, man. Thank you. Oh man, hold on, man. I'm trying to get this brother added. Brother Bishop, what's going on, man? How are you?
I'm doing all right. No doubt, no doubt with the donation. You know, I'm BJ Onyx. Just
Hey,
in case you want to know who it is.
thank you, my brother. Are you
No
all
doubt, man.
Red Pill? That's you too?
Huh?
Are you Bishop Red Pill?
Yeah, I'm Bishop Red Pill.
What's good, my brother? Thank you, man. You just got a different username, different moniker. Go ahead and speak,
Yeah,
brother.
that was my original name for the longest. But I wanted to jump in the conversation when you was talking about um how the perpetual how they act like victims all the time. And
Okay.
then at the same time, saying that they're the most unprotected and all that, all the monikers they use to put on themselves, but at the same time they're strong and that if they overthrow it, they don't. And I was listening to what you were saying, and it was interesting the reading that you was reading, and how you titled the video saying trying to fly under the radar, but some fools love to perform. It's almost very weird. They want to be victims, but at the same time they want to be victors. They want to be known as people that overcome things. And that's the part that really gets me, but it's almost like gaslighting everybody. Not even just black men. It's like it's gaslighting everybody, trying to say, "Oh, I'm a perpetual victim," but at the same time, I got black girl magic, and I'm this, that, and the third. And honestly, it's very magical thinking to even come up with these concepts. And I did a video on it talking about the monstrosities of the executors, like what you were saying about how whether it's conditioning or is now done on purpose. At this point in time, it's so crazy. Like it don't even matter at this point in time, because now I really believe that people that our women are very conscious of what they're doing, especially when you find out the manifesto of BLM and how it's really geared towards lesbians, transgenders, and then gay people, and then somewhere a little bit, oh, we're going to use the black bodies of black men, kind of thrown in there, but it's really not even about the whole unit. And this is why it's very dangerous when you hear black men who are, heterosexual, because we got to keep it real. We all divided amongst sexuality. And it's very dangerous when I see heterosexual men try to hitch their caboose to it. And it's like, you are nowhere to be found in this particular conversation. You want to be in it, but you're not in it. And they sit there try to defend these organizations that has no interest in their lives whatsoever.
Oh yeah, man. Look, let me just say this. They already, like, I can go back to the Combahee River Collective and demonstrate to you what they say, right? And they say again in section 3, this is why we need to know this. This is their playbook. Like, if you have access to, and I hate to say that black women are on a different team, but they have declared themselves to be on a different team.
Oh yeah.
It's not like black men just decided, okay, well, we got a beef or a gripe with black women and we're going to just look after our own self-interest. Nowhere in the history of the civil rights movement or the nationalistic movement did you hear black men say, okay, we got to leave black women out. Like, we just set them to the side and worry about what's best for us because we're more oppressed than they are. And from unique injustices related to black women. Now, white women gave them the kind of language and the pretext for which that kind of thinking and that kind of politics could emerge to the fore. But you don't see this. You don't see black men articulating this kind of political sentiment. You just don't see it. So where it comes from, and again, it's the playbook. So if you want to understand what these women are doing, dare you to see, and I dare you to go look at an article, a blog piece, a major piece that you find out in academia that doesn't echo the sentiments that are coming out of the Combahee River Collective. I dare you.
Mm-hmm.
Because you got it all there. You got sexism there. You got heteronormativity there. You got racism there. And those race, class, but they say class, but they never talk about class. See, that's the thing, because what ends up happening is women in the academy and in the corporate world end up using the talking points of feminism, and they leave behind the class-related issues, and they cash in on neoliberal gains. So, say, for example, you want a job at the academy. All you have to do is say you're an intersectional feminist, and of course, the main antagonist in the grand play of intersectional feminism is the boogeyman black man. So all you got to do is badmouth black men, talk about how they're oppressors. It works for everybody. You get a job, you get to be derisive and issue invectives against black men who basically can't say anything about it. Otherwise, they're going to end up being perceived as misogynist or gauging in misogynoir. And so therefore, you got the market corner because white women accept it, and white men in the academy, they for the most part, they don't pay attention to what goes on in women and gender studies. They just let them have their voice. They let them do their research, as long as they don't interfere with what's going on in the hard sciences and in other areas of the academy. They really could care less. And they want to, they virtue signal and give support to them tangentially. But I mean, in the end, who's left holding the bag? Because you all know, S rolls downhill. Definitely, it rolls downhill. So all of these policies, all of these laws, all of these acts, they get carried out against black men, and the true patriarchs, the ones that they continuously criticize in the literature, they are left untouched. They're unscathed. This is like, oh, you silly, like Eddie Murphy said in Trading Places, you silly Negro, or whatever it was. I can't even remember which it was, but it's like it's unconscionable that this kind of negativity will be placed on the backs of black men who also have undergone many of the same experiences from racism, but also as it relates to gender and abuse, man. That's the kicker of it all. Because if there's nothing left for black women to claim that gives black men privilege, other than their privilege to be able to abuse black women, if it's found, and it increasingly is becoming clear that black women are just as abusive as black men, then they have nothing left to stand on in relation to their theory about feminism. They don't have anything left to stand on. So this is why the data is important. This is why social scientific research is important and critical and crucial. But, if you want to understand, and this is what they say, look, what they say, Section 3, Combahee River Collective. The reaction of black men to feminism has been notoriously negative. They are, of course, even more threatened than black women by the possibility that black feminists might organize around our own needs. They realize that they might not only lose valuable and hardworking allies in their struggles, but that they might also be forced to change their habitually sexist ways of interacting with and oppressing black women. Accusations that black feminism divides the black struggle are powerful deterrents to the growth of an autonomous black woman's movement. But they've overcome that hurdle. That's overcome. They have decided to focus in and center around their own needs. They're not worried about black men. In fact, black men become part of the problem. Black men are the primary problem to black women. All you got to do is just look at the, like the poster women are putting up there. It's misandrous all the way through and through. Black men are abusers. We got more to worry about from black men than we got to worry about, anywhere else in society. So these kind of talking points are put forth. And Gloria Steinem is the one who came up with that claim, by the way.
Yeah, she did.
Even mainstream feminists rejected some of the grossest kind of claims and the most wild and egregious kind of claims that came out of the mouth of radical feminists. But black feminists, they have no problem whatsoever in reiterating those same talking points without having to prove or establish empirical grounds by which to make those kind of claims. They just keep being resurfaced and recycled, reshuffled, recycled, remixed, and they come out again. We have to begin to challenge this. Like I know the brother, I don't know if it was you that just said this or if it was before that said this. It's difficult to criticize women in the public sphere because then you'll be looked at as a bad guy.
Yeah, you will.
That's over with now. That's done. There's no way that you can continue to critique, and then you don't expect any critique in return. And there's no way that you can get rid of this hard scientific evidence that's coming out that's demonstrating Black boys are raped more than any other demographic.
Yeah,
right?
They are.
From the ages of like from 10 to 15 years of age, they have the earliest sexual debut, and older women are the ones who are having sex with these boys.
Oh yeah, I'm one of them victims.
So I mean, the claim, and so because the Centers of Disease Control, and I think the FBI also changed the definition of what rape and sexual assault is. Now we have a whole new way of looking at and approaching the subject matter related to the Black boogeyman. That's over with. The last time I did a video that kind of got high numbers was talking about how shaming Black men in the public sphere is not part of loyalty at all, although Black women would like to claim that they're loyal.
Yeah.
My viewpoint on the whole issue is this entire body of work is misandrous and it's oppressive. It is oppression. One of the main faces of oppression is having a contemptible and a vile image set forth in the public sphere that represents you without you having any control or any management of it. But now, that's what feminism is doing. It's basically saying this is how you are. We're not going to allow you to have any rebuttal or to define yourself. We're going to define you for you. And you are an oppressor. You are the Black boogeyman, rapist, abuser.
And pretty much you got to shut up and take it.
Hey, no, that's over with, bro. Like too many Black men getting killed. Black men suffering from social death, from being incarcerated and being stamped as felons or labeled as felons. It's Black men dying early deaths that could have been prevented because of their psychological state and their poor health. It's time at this point. I don't care what Black women are doing or how they feel or where they're going. I don't care about their feelings, their safety, none of it. I'm being honest, because if you're not looking after my safety, what obligation do I have to look out for yours?
Exactly. And that's crazy when they want the undying loyalty, and it's like you're willfully being an executioner of your own people. Like I even heard on this platform, if you're about to have a Black son, execute him. But if you're having a Black daughter or a Black baby girl, keep her. And I'm like, is this what I'm hearing nowadays? But it's coming out of like a huge group that's pushing this. And of course, we know feminism, like to be the ultimate feminist, you pretty much is a lesbian, and you have hate for men. And we now got this ball is rolling, and it's like what you said, the snowball is rolling down. It's really catching a lot of steam, and even heterosexual Black women, they're even buying into this. And it's like, excuse me, ma'am, like that's unclaimed, that's unfound. And another thing that you was talking about, the abuse part on a lot of Black men and Black boys. My grandpa was telling me this stuff when he was born back in the 20s. And he was telling me that a lot of domestic disputes were not considered domestic abuse because it was from both parties. And most times the agitator was mostly a Black woman. And he was telling me this back years ago when I was a kid. And he's like, when I was growing up, man, our women knew how to throw hands. They'll actually start something with you. And then once you start fighting, they hanging in there with you. So I try to push this whole thing of saying, let's quit saying that it is domestic abuse. It's actually domestic disputes. It's not abuse, but our people get caught up in these terms and they don't really look at it. And it's like, if both parties are at each other's throats, and most times the agitator is the one that talks a lot, and we know women like to talk. It's usually disputes. It's not no abuse. And I try to get brothers to differentiate these two different things.
But like, here's the deal. There's been, like I said, there's 40 to 50 years of social scientific research on this issue, and they're just ignoring it and glossing over it, and they're continuing to put forth the talking points of feminism, which basically says the only etiology of domestic violence is male dominance, and that women are fighting off these brutes who want to dominate and control them and monitor and orchestrate their every move. And that's a lie.
Yeah.
Okay, women are attacking each other in these lesbian relationships.
Oh yeah.
The group that has the least amount of domestic violence, the demographic, or gay men. That is the demographic that has the least amount of domestic violence. Lesbian feminists have the highest degree of domestic violence. So at some point, Lucy, y'all got some explaining to do.
Yep.
You got some explaining to do. And the woman who came up with the Duluth model, her name is Ellen Pence. She devised this theory with a legislator by the name of Michael Payman. She even admitted that it was all predicated upon confirmation bias. So at some point, we got to start telling the truth, because if we really want to mitigate the harm that goes on in our homes, we got to start telling the truth about what's actually going on in our homes. And Black men, to the extent to which they don't divulge what's actually occurring and happening, they are actually the ones protecting Black women.
Yeah, they are.
Because men don't call the police on women when they get into domestic disputes, but women are the ones who call the police.
Yeah, my grandpa used to tell me that. He said a lot of men were scared to say it because, again, other men would shame them and say, "You getting beat by your old lady?" And they used to laugh about it.
Look, if a woman has no inhibitions in putting you in harm's way, because look, what the police are most highly charged in domestic violence settings or when they heard guns go off. That's when they're on the highest alert. Okay? This is just police culture. They have more to fear when they come into a domestic than damn near any other kind of situation other than they heard a firearm discharge on the radio. So they go in, they're ready to kill. They just recently shot a brother. His last name is Blake. I don't know his first name. I can't recall. Jacob Blake. He's trying to break up a fight between two women. One of them is his baby mother. She calls the police. He's already got warrants out for his arrest related to domestics. He ends up getting shot and killed. Well, not killed, but shot and paralyzed. All over some woman that can't keep the shit under control. And this is what happens when women are not held accountable. One of the ways they can be held accountable, start calling the police on their asses as soon as they hit you. I don't care if it hurts or not. Violence, you just committed an act of violence against me. I'm about to put a restraining order on your ass and let you see what the system looks like.
Yep.
We're the ones protecting them. They act like they're protecting us. Like, take the Meg Thee Stallion situation. There's a woman who claimed in the past that she done smacked and punched the dude around. Because, girl, he had it coming.
And she a big girl too.
But then on the other hand, you want to claim like you're not protected. At some point, this bullshit has to end. And that very idea that women can walk around in the world and be left unscathed for doing harmful acts, that's ridiculous, man. At some point, that has to come to a close. If you harm people, you're going to get harmed. If you create and foment danger and violence in your home, you're gonna have to expect that in return at some point, or you're gonna have to expect for the police to show up and get your ass taken to jail. So we have to change the paradigm. We have to change the narrative. We have to change the frame, and we're doing that. We're gonna do it.
And you know what? Know how they doing it to us? They're placating on our male nature, which is to protect and to include everybody. And male nature is to want to take care of your woman and want to take care of the kids and protect them. But the thing is, they're using it against us, and we're not looking at the big picture. Like, okay, if she's gonna keep using this against me, it's harming me rather than helping the whole group. And I'm letting her get away with it. And it's something got to give.
It's called exploitation.
Yep.
and it's oppression.
Mm-hmm.
Exploitation is one of the. There's 5 faces of oppression.
Mm-hmm.
Marginalization, right? Which means that, okay, we're going to decenter you. They've already established that they're decentering black men.
Right.
We don't need you in the conversation. Like take, for example, Black Lives Matter. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And I've talked about this also, and look, I don't have a problem with Black Lives Matter, but I do have a problem with black men being decentered such that they can't even have a discussion about how they feel about their own deaths.
Right.
So who had an agenda, and their agenda was to push forward the same philosophical concepts being articulated in the Combahee River Collective, right?
Mm-hmm.
So it supposedly had begun as an outrage over a black boy's death, namely Trayvon Martin, right?
Mm-hmm.
But now it hinges on gender politics, which is not adept at uncovering the vulnerabilities of black men and boys' lives, right?
Mm-hmm.
So while black men worry about dying at the hands of police and street vigilantes, you got a group of queer black women who created a hashtag which basically centers around who they can shamelessly have sex with.
Right.
So my beef really has nothing to do with their sexual politics or their sexual preferences, right? And they're willing to promote and defend those preferences, right? I think they should. But my beef is they should not promote their own sexual and gender agenda under the aegis of defending black boys and men's lives. That's intellectually dishonest, it's disingenuous, and it's exploitative.
Because I even talked about it on a live stream I did. I said, when you say the moniker Black Lives Matter, I thought that covered everybody, no matter what you did in the bedroom, who you identify as long as you have this skin that is dark brown and that it comes from African ancestry and you were, your people was once enslaved. I thought that covered all of us. But when you start chopping at bits to say trans life matter, what about women being unprotected? It's like you just basically just cherry picked who you want in the group and threw out what you didn't like. But you're aesthetically using the people that you don't like, as long as they're dead. Oh, let's use them.
Oh, look, let me just say this, bro. Please support the channel. $G with a PhD at Cash App. Please support your scholars, man. I'm doing this work, and it ain't always easy to do. I just want to put that shameless plug in there. But what I want is about protection, right? Black men can't protect black women from themselves. And what I want to say is black men need protection from black women. We need protection from them because what they do is they flex their pseudo power. It's proxy power, right? When they call the police, when having these disputes that you were talking about, and they do this to destroy a man's life. They know what they're doing when they do this, and they know the danger that the police arriving at the scene poses to a black man's life. To put a black man in that kind of danger, knowing full well that you're mostly or partially responsible for this shit jumping off the way that it is to begin with, that is oppression also.
Yes,
That's
it is
a form of violence against black men. We need to identify it as such. You can't start drama. You can't throw stones and hide your hand and then act like you're being abused.
Right.
That's not acceptable. That's disingenuous. It's intellectually dishonest, and it's a form of oppression, and it can end up getting men killed. That's what it is. So, look, let me just say this. I have a perfect duty to take care of my children and the people who are closest to me that are women in my family. That's it. I don't have a duty to perform justice work for random women on the streets and to make sure they're okay. Outside of the context of me being, in a community organization that's dedicated towards that task. You can't expect for me to make sure that I'm going out here and making sure women are safe all across the board, especially if there's no cooperation. Like I don't random women. That's like saying I have to give a guy on the street who's panhandling, I got to drop some money in his hat. I can decide if I want to do that. But imagine if I'm trying to make sure that that's happening for all the guys panhandling around the local area in which I live. I'd be so distracted and so concerned about performing this laborious task. I wouldn't have time to do anything for myself.
Yep.
They need to learn how to stay out of harm's way themselves and stop fomenting violent conflict. And maybe you wouldn't get into so much drama. A lot of times Black women are creating drama for themselves.
Yep, they are.
So it's dirty and unfair to require Black men to endure abuse while Black women claim to the world that they're being abused by Black men. That's unfair. It's unjust, right? So what they do is they guilt trip you with, we go through so much, we suffer in silence, we protect you, we cover you, you're loyal. That's a lie, man.
Right.
That's a lie. They're mimicking the behavior of white women. And it's mostly Black women who call the police and get the state involved. That's just basically what it is. Bottom line. What they hit us with is the guilt trip. You're oppressive. You're abusers. You're rapists. You're dominators. You're sexist. You're misogynistic. You're violent. You're homophobic. You're transphobic. All of this stuff, man. But Black men can have equal responses. We can say, well, look, y'all are manipulators. Y'all are exploiters. Y'all liars. Y'all fickle. Y'all not accountable. Y'all misandrous. Y'all homophobic yourselves. Transphobic, destructive, cruel, hypocritical. And you use the state, you bring in white people to kill us. So what's good then?
And you know what's so funny? They are so homophobic to the point to where they're all right with the guy that is a homegirl. You know what I mean? The one that's really flamboyant and all this other stuff. But that same flamboyant guy, when he pushed up on one of her ex-boyfriends, and he may be in a closet, and he may be afraid of his whatever sexuality, they would drag that dude just to the fact that they felt like he tricked them. But they could be broke up for years. But I'm like, aren't you for men, being themselves, quote unquote, I'm throwing them air quotes. I thought you were okay with, for them to be safe to come out. So which one is it? You're against it or are you for it? Because you can't do both at the same exact time. It don't make any sense.
So I got my man, the nameless protagonist here. What's up, protagonist, man? He says the gynocracy's power is augmented by the power of the state under the veil of egalitarianism and men being gaslighted with this word patriarch. I agree with you, brother. Look, at the end of the day, man, and I'm gonna go ahead and duck you off for a minute because I want to talk about some things.
Oh, no doubt.
But and you can always come back in, chime back in if you desire to. But
I got something to run, got somewhere to run. I got to start my own show in a minute. But I appreciate it, man.
For dropping by, man. It's always good, and I'm gonna make sure I try to get on, listen to some of your cast, man, and see what you are working on. But like I've been kind of busy here, man, so I haven't had the time to do as much perusing of YouTube as I would like to. But hey, man, dropping by, man, and coming in and offering your viewpoint.
Oh, no doubt. It's an honor being on with you, man. I'll catch you later, man.
It's an honor having you on as well. Thank you, brother.
All right, peace.
Peace. Look, for Black men to be called patriarchs while suffering from the same abuse that women do, both sexually and physically, in terms of violence, to then be typecast and stereotyped as the boogeyman, then to be told that we need to be decentered, then to be called homophobic and transphobic and all this other stuff, that's crazy, man. And look, women have complete control over children. But it wasn't always the case that women had complete control over children. This just wasn't the case. This is a relatively recent phenomenon. Less than 150 years ago, if a woman was to divorce a man, you know who the kids went to? It ain't women. Those kids went directly to the father. That's where the kids went. I can give you, and you look it up if you think I'm wrong. Look it up. Because Okay, so what happened was in England, and this is what's wild because most of y'all don't know, or maybe you do know. The United States operates primarily by common law, the common law tradition, which is the tradition established by England. Okay? Now, all throughout the United States, there is, for the most part, common law, although there are territories like Louisiana, they operate under Napoleonic law. There's a whole different kind of law going on there. But if a woman wanted to divorce a man, the man would get the children. Not the woman, the man. It wasn't until 1839. That's the year. 1839. Right? The English Parliament created the Custody of Infants Act. Okay? So men would have, even when they instituted this act, men were still the primary stewards of children, right? But the act enabled women to petition the court, like men do now, to maintain custody of the children until age 7 years old. After age 7, she had to give them up to the father. Go look it up. Custody of Infants Act, 1839. Before then, men received full custody of children in divorce cases, and they were perceived as being the primary caretakers of children, not women. Right? And it wasn't until 1873 that Parliament extended the age to 16 under what they call the Tender Years Doctrine. The Tender Years Doctrine, right? And this doctrine, for the most part, presumed that in a child's early years, they are best cared for by the mother, right? So this principle was adopted by the majority of U.S. states, and the law has been in effect for the past century. I bet you didn't know that in the past 150 years that the entirety of who is perceived as being the primary caretakers of children, how it flipped script. It became inverted. So it's kind of hard. The primary means by which an individual is able to have control over a family is by means of the kids. Thank you very much, Bucket 88. I appreciate that. What's good, Kendra? How you doing? I'm glad you came and dropped by. So the primary means by which you are able to exercise what we call patriarchy is by means of having control of the children in a familial situation. Black men are not patriarchs in that regard. They have no power. Again, I said this the last time. You got like visitation. Can you imagine that? You get to visit your kids. Oh, he's on a visit. And the woman can make you have supervised visits. Where think about that. Imagine a man monitoring and hovering over a woman as she takes care of the kids. Imagine that. That's absolutely ridiculous, man. And the primary demographic that harms children are women. They're the primary carriers out of domestic abuse as it pertains to child abuse. They are. It just seems reasonable because they're the ones who control the kids the most in our culture. So they're the primary carriers. Look, let me just say this. Men are violent in public towards each other, primarily. Primarily. Men are violent towards each other in the public sphere towards one another. But when women are violent, they are more likely to be violent in the context of a domestic setting. That's where women carry out violence against their partners, whether they be male or female, whether it be to children or to the elderly. That's where they carry out violence the most. In domestic settings, against children, males and female intimate partners, and to the elderly. That's where their violence is carried out, in case you didn't know. But you know what? The very idea, and I'm just going to go say this, man. Look, I want to share a screen for a minute. I'm going to flip the script, though, for a second. I'm going to shift emphasis and focus. Because what I want to do is draw out this whole idea that black women are not protected. Y'all see this graph? Y'all see that graph? Now look, this is the year 2000. Things have changed. I'm pretty sure these numbers have like shifted quite a bit, but not that much. The trend is set. The standard has been established. Look where white women lie at on this bar graph. So what the graph is or represents is incarceration rates per 1,000 persons in the population. So it's a ratio graph to demonstrate to you per 100,000 people how many black men are locked up in contradistinction to black women and other white men and white women. We already know, we can look here and see white women are the most protected in relation to having to deal with punishment. They don't get punished at all. There's no punishment for them. If they do something wrong, they're not getting punished. You would think that white women don't do anything wrong by looking at this. Nothing at all. The next group who has the least amount of incarceration rates are black women. Now, we all know black women out here doing some straight scandalous dirt, man. We already know it. I know women who rob, who boost, who do crack, who sell crack, who got knives and guns. They're not any more prone to be wholesome than any other demographic. They just go under the radar. Wouldn't it be nice to be able to fly under the radar and to not have a target on your back? It would seem to me that you would be grateful that you're not visible. You should be grateful that you're not seen. I'm not going to put the graph up for death in relation to violence, but shoot, black men are subjected to more violence than any other group. Add on top of that, sexual assault. Add on top of that, the kind of domestic violence we're exposed to. Add on top of that, the way the school siphons us off to prisons from early ages. Add to that health-related issues, psychological issues, and financial disenfranchisement. Man, we're going through hell, and we're told that we don't need to speak. We don't need to say what's going on with us. We should just be quiet and let black women lead. Because black women are going to save us all because they're the most oppressed group. You got to be kidding me, man. Like this, it can't be real. This can't be real. But yet they come forward with this kind of claim that they're not visible, they're not perceived, they're not seen. We're not protected. We're not covered. Black men been covering for y'all for a long time, black women. We've been covering for you. We don't use the state against you. You could be the spook that sat by the door gaining intel so that we can find a way to get ourselves out of oppression and domination along the lines of race. But instead, what you want to do is you want to reiterate the talking points of these white women who are feminists in order to gain currency in the marketplace. You're cashing in on neoliberal returns. And the way you're doing so is by bad-mouthing and deriding black men. You see, look, again, man, contemporary feminists' pathological fear of black men, both black and white, manifests into a corrosive and destructive black misandrist theorization. It is the product of a fruitful imagination rooted in racist typecasting. This so-called fear, which I don't really even believe is a fear, but if there is any fear there at all, it's based on stereotyping and typecasting. Their fear is chiefly the product of anti-black propaganda, where whites depict black men as savages and rapists, while they themselves are historically known to have savagely beat and raped black men, black women, and black children on slave plantations and during Jim Crow. Black men are characterized as participants and the beneficiaries of patriarchy, while they are summarily executed by people who claim that they're afraid of them. Street vigilantes and law enforcement officers, who all use this imagery of the black boogeyman. Black men are sentenced to 20% more time than white men for committing the exact same crime. They are incarcerated at 5 times the rate of white men. So at this moment, man, we have to find a way to reconfigure, recreate, redefine black manhood. And we can't let people who are outside of our group do this for us, because you're not responsible for who we are. You don't define us. All this protection, loyalty, cover us, provide for us, that's women articulating what they want out of a man, not what a man is defining himself to be. Now, according to like a thinker like Dr. Tommy Curry, black men have a different historical consciousness and ideal of manhood than white men. And Curry basically says, look, black men are not the beneficiaries of white male patriarchy. If anything, black men are the primary scapegoats of white male and female wrath. Increasingly, we're becoming the scapegoats of black female wrath. Black men are like the wild fauna, like the wild wilderness, the tropical jungle, the jungle that has to be tamed. That's why we bear the brunt of physical abuse and white social domination. We're the wild flora and fauna. And it's a lie. Like white women are, they act like they're just so disadvantaged. I'm so persecuted. I'm so oppressed. White women benefited greatly from slavery and white male patriarchy. And they still do. They don't go to jail when they do things that are wrong. They get slapped on the wrist. They had, man, look, recently, the people who were involved in the testing admission scandal, like they had this white woman, man, she like set up hundreds of people to scam the system so that these affluent and wealthy white kids could get admitted into some of the most elite universities and schools around the nation. She got sentenced. Guess how much time she got? Guess how much time she got? 2 months, man. 2 months. But they had a black woman who falsified the reports such that her kid could go to school in a different school district. Man, they slapped 5 years on that lady, man. Gave her 5 years, not probation. They put her in jail, yo. Put her in jail. What's up, team? What's up, dog team? They put that lady in the slammer, man. Just because she wanted a better education for her kid. So you got a whole group. I'm telling you, man, the way the law works is different for different people. But you choose them, though, right? Them your Ace Boone Coons, your A1s from day one. That's who you ride with. That's who you rocking with. Them people. That's who you rocking with, huh? So anyway, man, like these white women benefited greatly from slavery. Greatly. My theory is, I guarantee you, who do you think is the demographic that has the most money in the United States? Which demographic? I'm going to say it's white women. Because they outlive their husbands. When all of that money gets parceled out after the death of the man, guess who it goes to? Their wives. Their wives. They still got money. They got long bread. But we arguing with each other over who gonna control the kids. When it takes a mutual coalition between a man and a woman to actually raise a healthy child. The child wants to know, you know, now you got all of these new plans like, okay, well, what we gonna do is we gonna have these mutual coalitions where we got like women, two moms and all this kind of stuff. That's my mom's sister and all of this. My auntie mom. I got two moms. The kid's still gonna want to know where his daddy at, like what? Because he already knows after he reaches a certain age that procreation happens between a man and a woman. Well, where the daddy at? Where's my father at? Where my daddy at? So it's true. White men operated in the public sphere. But white women was a domestic disciplinarian who had complete legislative control and executive control over the education and the moral socialization of her own children, including all adult slaves, male or female. Women were the ones running the plantation. They were the ones who ran the household. The husband was out making money, buying and selling, writing up contracts. The women were in the household with all of the tyranny. So if you look at it, white women were not oppressed and dominated prisoners in their own homes, pure and innocent little damsels subjected to the arbitrary whimsy of violent and controlling husbands. No, in fact, they were the rulers of an integral domain within a growing empire. And they had the power of life and death over all Black lives, male or female. So the white men were supposed to justifiably use power to domesticate the savages. Black people are no more than pigs and goats and sheep. And white women, so the white men went out and conquered it, and white women domesticated it. It's like training an animal to do tricks. And another thing Curry points out, initially, gender was used to create hierarchies amongst races, not amongst males and females. Gender was initially used to create hierarchies amongst races. You want to know what this actually means? In essence, the Black race is a feminine race, according to these people. That's what you get from the Moynihan report. If you want to go to the Moynihan report, that's what you're actually getting at. Black men are vaginas as it relates to white men. White men are stronger, smarter, more industrious, more virtuous than men from other races. That's the idea they're working with. The black man is a dull and sensuous animal, chiefly led by his appetite for sex. In other words, the black man has an innate proclivity to rape people. And what's odd about this is while white men condemned the insatiable sexual appetite of black men, guess what was happening? They were perversely raping and sexually assaulting black men, black women, black boys, and black girls. And white women aren't free either, because they were the perpetrators of all manners of sexual perversity on their property. I mean, they actually came out and said slavery was good for us. And they called a person who wanted to escape the condition of slavery, they had a term for it, drapetomania. Go look it up. Drapetomania, drapetomania. Why would you want to leave the civilizing force? It was good for the black race, slavery was, because it tamed black men's appetite for the sex. It protected black women from black men's sexual abuse, and it transformed savage black women into dainty and delicate little damsels. That's what they thought slavery was doing for us. For us. So, look, man, we got some work to do, man. We got some work to do. And these tropes, these narratives, these frames are being used to keep us stuck in a catatonic state. But let me get back to what I originally made this whole post about. It's about visibility. It's about recognition. If you ask me, it's about vanity. If you ask me, it's about wanting to be seen, wanting to be at the center, wanting to focus on yourself and your own concerns. That's what it is to me. You want to center yourself at all costs. You want to be the big kahuna. You want to be the leader. You want to be the big choo-choo. You don't want to be the caboose. You want to be the leader, the engineer, the architect, the pilot, the quarterback. You want to be the head coach. You want to be the point guard of this here. I got this. But what is it getting you? At the end of the day, what is it getting you? You ain't getting wealthy. And you get to what? Send some black men to jail? It ain't stopping you from getting your ass whipped. Because the only way you're going to stop from getting your ass whipped is for you to stop whipping ass. Stop putting your hands on men. I told you, in the link from the Harvard study, 2007, I'll give you the link again. The greatest predictor that a woman will be subjected to domestic violence is a perpetration of domestic violence. That's the biggest single predictor that a woman will be subjected to that phenomenon. The single biggest predictor. If that's the case, then what are you arguing about? You're the one that's bringing it on yourself. Why are you talking about loyalty and protection? Protect yourself. Do yourself a favor. Put your hands in your pocket. Keep your joy box flickers in your purse. I mean, it's just that simple. It's really just that simple. It don't take a lot of mental gymnastics to go over this. It's really just simple. But I think more than anything else, what it is, black women want to be recognized. They want to be recognized. They want to be seen. They want to be seen. They want honor and status. That's what they want. That's what they want. They want to be recognized and seen. They want to be at the front. Now, I agree. Not being seen and being overlooked, it can be damaging to your psyche. It can be. But given the context of what we're going through in this nation, you really want to be seen? You want to be out there on the front lines? Come on, man. You don't want to be seen like that. Black Sigma, thank you so very much for the donation, my brother. I really appreciate it, man. You don't want to be seen like that. And this, look, I'm getting to the 2-hour mark, but here's something that you also should know about recognition. You can be given psychological harm for being overlooked. Like, it's like being at the table and you're trying to talk, but like you're a little kid, nobody pays attention to you, right? That could be irritating and it could be damaging to your self-esteem. It can be. So I'll give them that. Okay, I'll give them that. But God dog it, man. What lengths will you go to in order to be seen? I mean, you're going to cry out and elbow people out of death? That necro envy is ridiculous. When you got black men hemorrhaging and who have been oppressed and subjected to violence just as much as, if not more than you, we're going to start playing the Olympics and say, y'all got to be quiet. It's our turn to lead. Because if we lead, then everybody else is free. I already gave you the 4 reasons why I think that's absolutely ridiculous. Because oppression morphs in and out of different forms. They posit themselves as the universal subject. And you need patriarchy to carry out their protection and the enforcement of laws that are supposedly sexist and violent and rapey. Another one is they act like they got all forms of oppression figured out and they all just hone in on them. You can't, they doing too much, man. Y'all are doing too much out here. But I want a woman to get on and to debate these facts and to talk about these issues because they're scarce. I would love to be able to fly under the radar in a system like this. If it's a war going down, why would you want to be seen? I'm going to be moving like a ninja. I'm going to be flying real low. If I know it's some heat out there, the last thing I'm going to do, if it's shots flying overhead, the last thing I'm going to do is stick my head up over the radar so I can be seen and then pew, 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 pew. Why would you want that drama? We already protecting you. Apparently we are, because look at all of the violence that's being conducted against us, where it's bypassing you. But you still got some shit to talk about. You still want it to be about you. It's still got to be about them. And I ain't saying all women, look, I just want to qualify what I'm saying because all women are not like this. But increasingly, more and more women are becoming like this. And there's no pushback from men, black men. My personal opinion, only black men can solve this problem. White men are not going to have the moral authority to solve it because they really actually are patriarchs. They are. We're not. We're the most vulnerable group. I'm going to go out there and say it. And we don't even sit there and talk about it. And we don't call black women oppressors. We call them crazy and say y'all got some work to do. That's what we say. We're not out here saying that y'all are oppressors and declaring to the world you are oppressors. Systematically, as a whole, you are dysfunctional and pathological. That's not what we're putting out there for the world to see. But some things about to change. Because you ain't gonna be able to throw stones and hide your hands no more. That's done with. But you got a whole bunch, but you got a group of manginas out here, a group of what y'all call them, maggles. Got a group of maggles out here. And these maggles are going to do everything they can to remain in the ConcuSurf position. It's donezo for that, man. It's done for that. In time for that. That's over with, man. That's over with. It's time for us to step up and define ourselves. Black women are not responsible for defining who we are. We protected black women and not told they dirt that they do against us and written it down systematically to demonstrate what the hell is really going on and the weird kind of stuff that's going on in these households. Grown ass women having sex with 12 and 10-year-old boys, giving them herpes and all that. See, we don't want to talk about what's really going on. See, black men have been quiet. All that quiet stuff is about to be donezo. Done deal. It's kind of hard to claim black men are oppressors when you're doing the same thing you claim is oppressive. Kind of hard to do. Gonna get kind of rough out here on these oppression streets. But that's how you want it. That's how you about to get it. Served up cold on a platter. And I love black women, but you got to be held accountable. And the community is not going to improve until we start telling the truth. I'm about to be like Eric Snowden in this mug. We got to tell the truth gonna set us free. All the half-truths, the partial theorizing, telling, my side of the story. No, you about to get the whole story, the whole truth. And we all know, man, at the end of the day, man, let me tell you why I think this is going where it's been going for so long. Because to be perfectly honest, this women's liberation stuff, man, it's a cottage industry. It's easier for you to get a job in academia or in the corporate world if you're a black woman at this point in time. In academia, you can get a tenure track job in the humanities. All you got to do is start lambasting black men and say they're oppressors. You can typecast this as a boogeyman, you got the job. You're hired. Oh, you're an intersectional feminist? Hired. Hired, 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 hired. It's time to put an end to this, man. The truth, man. We need the truth. All these lies, all this innuendo, all the chicanery, it's about to come to a close. And it's time to start naming names, too. And look, Solid Lamont, the big booming voice out here right now that's denigrating Marquez Houston over this woman that he got with that's 19, who is an adult, by the way, can go off to war and die. She ought to be able to choose who she can screw since she got such sexual liberatory politics popping off. It seems like it's only liberating if it's a woman and a woman. They can kiss all day. They can kiss all day. As soon as you add a black man to the mix, yeah, the man is twice her age, but that's a grown woman. Legally emancipated from her parents. She can do whatever she want to do, except for go get a drink. Brittany Cooper, the crunk feminist. The overweight lover feminist. I'm putting it out there. You can be mad at me if you want to. I don't give a damn. You want to get angry? You mad? You upset? I got rage too. You don't want to see this rage. I'm pissed off too. You don't want to see me pissed off. I'm gonna start giving, man, these feminists bubble wrap, man. So when you walk the earth, when you don't scrape your knee or something, it'll just pop the air bubble. What makes you think you got the right to walk around the earth free from pain? And then men are obligated to do all they can to ensure that you suffer no pain at all. But you want to be equal though. You want to call the shots though. Don't work like that. It don't work like that. So anyway, y'all, man, I'm about to sign off from this cast, man. Thank you for joining me on this fine Saturday. I'm gonna post some links in the description box so I can give you some insight as to where I was coming from with all of this. But my whole thing is, if you can fly under the radar, why do you want to be out on Front Street? So you can get capped? Because that's what's coming next. The more you put yourself out there on Front Street, the more you expose yourself. The more you expose yourself, the more you can get sniped at. So enjoy your newfound visibility. I'm the Green Gorilla, man. Peace out.